love to set the stage by talking about something that truly inspires all of us, a journey of Karm Avas, and the work that work like, the work that they do. So like Mansi Joshi, who embodied spirit. So before I move on to Karm Avaz, I would like to talk about what Karm is. It's a place where ambition meets opportunities, and it's a place built by people who believe in helping and empowering young women find and create their wings. It is founded by Radhika ma'am and Karthik sir, is an heartfelt initiative driven by compassion, education and purpose. Their deep-rooted belief in equality and making young Indian women financially independent. The Trust Fellowship Program includes Karm Avas, uh, Karm Graduate Fellowship, and Karm Law Fellowship. All of this is designed to uplift the young women. While Karm supports us financially as well, in parallel, it enhances our employability through English language learning, mentoring, career skills, and community service in a nurturing and caring environment. Karmavas, you can say this is a sort of an sisterhood in motion, a space where stories are shared, confidence is built, and dreams are amplified through the simple yet powerful act of becoming support for each other. This program is fully led by Karm Fellows under the umbrella of Karm, and it was created with the vision of sharing our learnings with other young women and building a ripple effect of empowerment, because we believe that this empowerment should reach to everybody. At its core, Karmavas believes that real challenge begins when women stand for women, when each voice echoes louder because it is carried by many. Through this initiative, we conduct engaging session with Sakhis, the young women with potential to derive change. These sessions not only strengthen their knowledge and skills, but also kind of nurture their confidence and foster a safe and collaborative and supportive community. By doing so, we aim to help young women find their voice and take a confident steps forward toward financial independence. And as we see the ripple effect unfold, one empowered woman uplifting another, we are reminded that together we don't just amplify voices, we create a change in them and in their life as well. We also have some participants guidelines, so please let's follow and abide by the rules. And so engage actively, try to keep your videos on and your mic muted unless it is required. Be respectful and keep the space respectful and inclusive. Ask questions as much as you can because it's a space to grow and thrive together. And please apply the learnings and the takeaways that you're going to have today in your journey as well. And now, speaking one of the change maker, let's introduce someone truly inspiring, Mansi Joshi. Mansi began her journey with her Teach for India in 2012, engaging directly with children in classrooms as a fellow. These early years deepened her understanding of educational inequity and strengthened her conviction in the potential of every child. Over time, she successfully advanced into leadership roles such as program manager, leadership coach, and then senior manager. Her leadership trajectory reached a milestone when she became the city director for Delhi, and where her impact became even more profound. As city director, Mansi led Delhi-based classrooms toward not just higher academic success, but also transformative growth, developing resilience, creativity, and fostering critical thinking among students. Under her guidance, students outperform city averages, illuminating the power of holistic education and nurturing the mindset. Her leadership during trying periods marked by socio-political and environmental challenges highlighted her ability to steer learning communities with empathy and strategic clarity. Her influence now stretches across borders. She engages globally now. Since January 2024, Mansi serves as the global lead learning experience at Teach for All, the international network that supports and empowers Teach for India. In this global role, she designs and leads learning ecosystem and strategies that help educators and leaders worldwide elevate their impact. Her work is a testament to leadership infused with heart, a powerful belief in young people, community led action, and the potential of collective effort to transform education. But there is more to her story. Her journey is underpinned by strong academic foundations. Mansi completed her MBA in strategy and leadership at the Indian School of Business between 27 and 28, equipping her with strategic insight and leadership frameworks that inform her work. Before that, she earned a BA honors in economics from University of Delhi, a grounding that developed her analytical thinking and socioeconomic awareness. Her journey from early classrooms in Delhi through academic rigor to global educational leadership is a powerful example of how rooted purpose and elevated vision can drive real change. With all of this, it's truly an honor to have Mansi ma'am with us today. We all are so excited for what lies ahead in today's session. Mansi ma'am, please, the mic and the platform are yours now.
This is too much, Kirti. I wasn't expecting such a heartwarming introduction. Thank you so much for this, and this is not the only reason, but this is one of the reasons I love being at KARM spaces. I think the biggest reason is that all the KARM girls and Radhika herself inspire so many of us because of everything that you do, but more importantly, everything that you are. So thank you for doing that. Today, I'm going to share my screen and share a little bit about this topic that I have been told to speak about, which is education as a tool for freedom. Um, and just because you said I work on learning experiences, I wanted to make this a learning experience and not just a talk where I am the one speaking. My hope is that today we will clarify what freedom through education means for all of us and each of us. We will connect with others and their experiences. Others here will be some stories of my classroom, my kids, some stories from Teach for India, some stories from Teach for All, and my own stories as well. And finally, my hope is that we commit to continuing to expand our freedom through education, even when formal education is over. How do we think about education in life in general? Does that sound good for all of you?
Yes.
Yes, you
Yes,
can give
ma'am.
me thumbs up. You can put things on chat as we speak. But if there are any questions, any things that you're very excited to talk about, make sure you put them on chat now so we don't miss them as we walk through a little bit of the story. As I share a little bit of a story, and then there'll be time for reflections, and then a little bit more, and then reflection. So that's how we'll do this. And my hope is that you will be interactive through chat. You can come off mute and share as well. But to start, I wanted to share a little story of a Teach for India fellow. 1st July 2012, a nervous 22-year-old fellow entered her classroom for the very first time. There were 40 equally nervous girls staring at her. When she asked them to stand up to do a little rhyme, they didn't know what she was saying and stared at her. As she began talking about their big goals, they made a gola, a circle instead, and again stared at her. She did not know what to do. She did not know how to do it. The only thing that was certain was she knew why she was there, to teach them to comprehend, read, and write. Little did she know that they would teach her far more than she ever taught them. 2 years later, they had done musicals and plays. They knew what they wanted to be in life. They operated with a certain set of values, teamwork being their favorite. They could work with grade level books and speak with confidence and that spark in their eyes. The pictures you see are from my Teach for India Fellowship classroom. All of these kids were 6 to 8 year olds back in 2012. 13 years later, these little girls that you see on the screen are now in college. And now She stares at them, amazed at how far they have come and how far she has come because of them. They are speaking at events, they're volunteering at nonprofits, they're leading societies in their college, they're hustling to jobs, they're making sure that they're not only being examples for their own families, but families around them in their communities. And I have also grown up as they have grown up, and they have helped me grow up to be where I am at. And I still carry the lessons that were true in my fellowship. And before I even share about, okay, what is freedom? How does education help us towards freedom? I have two questions that I want you to think about for the next minute or so, and they're on the screen. What does freedom mean to you? How has education helped you get to where you are today? Would love some responses on chat. As you heard the story of me and my girls, is there something that is coming to you, speaking to you about what does freedom mean to you? And how has education helped? Freedom means power to me. Very interesting. Power to choose, power to act, power to decide could mean so many things. Let's hear from a few more people. Power to live on my own. I love that. Freedom to me means living authentically, making my own choices without fear or restrictions. I love that, Avni. Thank you for sharing that. Saira shares, it reminded me of the time I entered in TFI classroom. Freedom for me means the power to stand for yourself and others. Beautiful. Freedom means a world with empathy. That's such a powerful thought, Priyanka. Freedom to make decisions, freedom to live my life by my own, independent decisions. I'm seeing a lot of decision, a lot of choice in the responses, which is beautiful. And if one or two of you can come off mute and share how education has helped you achieve this freedom or this definition of freedom that you have for yourself. I love that, Akanksha's freedom to speak truth. Anybody wants to come off mute and share any experience of yours, any um, time in your education? Saira, yes, please go for it.
So freedom for me, as I told in the chat, that it means to stand for yourself and others. So the background where I come from, there girls are not given the voice to talk about themselves or talk about the likes and dislikes and what they want to do, but rather they are told that what they have to do and what they should do. So for me, like getting into the space where my voice is heard, and I'm I have been given chance to speak up. So for the, for to have that space is what education is all about, to provide you with the space where you open up and where you see the difference between what you were and what you could be. So to
Absolutely.
realize what the importance you bring to world, that is what I feel now when I reflect back in my journey.
That's beautiful, Saira. And I know we have less time right now, so I'm going to request others to actually put their thoughts on chat. But hopefully, if we have time in the end, we'd love to hear from more people. But please feel free to put it on chat. And I love what you said. Education gives us a space which even helps us take that first step to freedom. And that's actually true about even my journey and my kids' journey in Teach for India. But it's not any education, it's actually holistic education, right? Like education should not be only limited to academics. Education should actually be of these three things that I feel are really important, that we learned through Teach for India, co-created through Teach for India, which is education of self, right? It beyond the books and beyond the knowledge that I'm learning, am I also learning about myself? What am I passionate about? What are my values? What am I like when I'm alone? What am I like when I'm with people? What are some things that I need to develop further? I think these are questions that help us discover ourselves. So, a holistic education that even needs has the potential to be a tool for freedom needs to, in my opinion and in my experience, have self as a very important part of it, others as the next part of it, which is yes, education is for my achievement, for me to earn better, to do different things independently, and like all of you said, right, live my life by my own terms, make my own decisions. But I think education is of others is as important, if more, if not more, as it is for self, which is about how am I being with others? What am I learning about my people? Like I shared in my journey in the beginning, I felt like I was going to teach my kids. But little did I know that they were going to teach me so much more, right? And when we work with others, we also discover different versions of ourselves. And by supporting others, we support ourselves as well. And one thing that I've understood about education is it's such a large problem, it's such an expansive problem to solve that it cannot be done alone. So working with others is a really critical aspect. And finally, like education that helps me understand my world. And my world could be the world, but it could also be my classroom, my school, my community, my KARM cohort, my internship place. It could be anything, but am I learning about my surroundings? Am I learning about what is happening? With the advent of internet, social media, we know what the world can be expanded to the world actually, because we are learning about the world and what's happening. So it could be like it could be from self to others to the world. And as we think about education, which is holistic, I'd love for you to now think about these three questions. And again, you can look at all three and answer all three, but you could also pick one that you want to go deep with. We're going to take 2 minutes to actually do this. And whenever you're ready, we can start sharing on chat. And I'd love for one person to come off mute and also share um, anything that you'd like to share, either all three, one question. What is something I'm discovering about myself? Who have I connected with and what did I learn about them? What is one idea I have about contributing to the world around me? Akanksha, go for it.
Uh, Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, you have such an inspiring journey, and like I feel so motivated, and I feel like I should join Teach for India. Ma'am, the one thing like I want to contribute to my school, like I studied in Jyoti school, and it was basically a full funded school. And the vision of Sudarshan Agrawal sir, he was the governor of Uttarakhand and Sikkim. So he basically like 35, he selected 35 students who were from like poor household and like unprivileged kids, and like he gave me the path to be where I am today. I can speak to you. I'm so confident because of him. Like he somewhere shaped me. Who am I today? So like I would like to take forward his vision and want to build a more schools that could shape girl like me so that they can do better and they could speak like me. like I
That's
am.
beautiful. Thank you so much, Akanksha,
That's
for that
how I am.
beautiful story. I think it is so interesting that not only have you learned something from them and about them, you also want to actually take that forward and act on it. That is beautiful. And I'm also seeing some responses on chat where Muskan is saying that she has learned that she tries to do her best and she likes to grow wherever and whatever she's working towards. That's beautiful. And I'm seeing some other responses that I think there's a lot of sense of possibility in our KARM girls, which is evident um, through my conversations with all of you. And it's visible that you're learning that about yourself. Isha says she's completely changed her perspective about freedom this year, which is such an important thing to do. Like, unlearning is as important as learning as we experience new things. Beautiful. Shubhashi, any other question that you want to respond to? Which one? You've raised your hand.
Actually, I had the first question in
Go for
mind.
it. Go for it.
So, what is something new I am discovering about myself? So, I did my internship this year at CSF, and I never thought that education is something which I'm passionate about or which I can work in. But working there, seeing what is happening, and actually hearing from all the people there who have had experience in teaching or want to teach. I had a colleague who taught students with learning disabilities. I had someone who is in education sector in policy making. And one thing I'm discovering about myself is this, that this is a totally new realm for me, and it's been such an exciting journey. And yeah, obviously it just started, but having that little seed inside of me feels awesome.
I love that. I love that you're discovering a new passion for yourself, and the fact that it's education is making me even more happy. But it's great that you're learning that about yourself. And I think something that Subhashi shared, right? Her internship and her beginning steps in her internship have made her think about this. As she grows further, maybe this thought deepens, maybe this thought changes, but it's so important to be aware of what we are working towards. Ramsha, I'm sorry, in the interest of time, can you put your what you're going to share on chat just so we are on time with everything? But I'm loving how interactive this is and how much you are willing to share. Um, so, as we think about holistic education and think about, okay, what does this do for freedom? I thought of all the experiences that I've had with my girls and as like the different roles that Kirti mentioned that I've done. And something that I was thinking a lot about is um, when we think of education, what does it do, right? And when I say education, I mean any education. It's not formal. Like, I can actually replace education with any experience and it can still be a tool for freedom. And when I say tool for freedom, I'm thinking about the head. Education as the tool for freedom of the head, right? It is actually empowering me to think. It is not just empowering me to learn and to know facts, but it's also helping me make connections. There's At Teach for India in the fellowship, we used to focus a lot on in reading comprehension. We used to focus on connections from text to self. So whatever we are reading, am I making connections to myself? Whatever I'm reading, am I making connections to some other thing that I've probably read? Uh, in my own life, whenever I'm stuck, I think one thing I do the most is go and read about it. I think whether it's about, oh, I'm not able to think about how to make decisions, I go and pick up a book and read about it. When I don't know how to manage teams or something that I'm struggling with into how to have difficult conversations, I go and read some articles on it or I go and read a book about it. And I think whenever I am feeling stuck, I use education, because the fact that I can actually read and access books to be able to free myself of the knowledge that I want to get. So I think that's something that I do. The second thing that I think education becomes a tool for is freedom of the heart. And it gives us the ability to not only think, but also feel. It helps us actually work with others. It helps us be able to empathize with others, support others, challenge others, and build healthy relationships with different people. Um, in my, I think in my best friend right now is my best friend since grade two. And I feel like big education and any experience is not just done in isolation, right? It's done through with people. And I think it is so important for us to open ourselves up to that. Um, an example that comes to my mind is, right, my students, Pooja and Priyanka may be great academically, right? But are they doing something with others? Or are they independently learning and getting good grades? So I think an important aspect of their classroom was not just learning independently and excelling at academics, but it was equally about how they're working with their teams. Who else is getting better because of them was something that we used to think a lot about, right? Um, and finally, actually, what do I do with all of this, right? Like, I have the freedom of my head, I have the freedom of my heart, but if I don't apply it, I have a huge action bias when it comes to just anything, solving anything, working at something. I have a huge action bias, and I think it comes from the fact that there's so much that needs to be done. How do we act on things? So freedom of the hand, being able to use whatever we are learning, whatever we are feeling, to actually act on solving things that we care about. An example of this is, not everyone was great academically, right? But there were people, and using the freedom education as a tool to really understand what am I good at. So if Sneha is great at singing, she would sing in the musicals that we had, right? And if Ikra is great at art, she would create the props and the decor and everything of the musicals, right? Making sure that what we are good at is being used to be able to create some positive contribution in the world. And when we say world, sometimes we feel like the world is too big and I'm so small, but the world can just be our own surroundings. And I know that so many of you are already doing that in through KARM and beyond. With that, I have these last set of reflection questions for us, and then we'll have a lot of time for questions and answers. But I'd love for you to think about, in your experience with KARM, and the reason I'm asking you for an immediate time is because if we are using education as a tool for freedom, we need to do this constantly. And we don't need to do this for only the time that we were in formal education at school or in college, but also experiences that you've created for yourself and KARM has created for you. So, how has learning or reflecting helped you think differently or challenge assumptions? Have you connected with someone different from you? It's very easy for us to connect with someone who's like us. But who do we connect with who's not like us? And what do we open ourselves to the possibilities of learning from them? And then finally, like, what actions have you taken through your time at KARM that have helped you or someone else? Again, we'll take 2 minutes to think through this. And whenever you're ready, you can start putting things on chat. I know these are not quick questions to think about. You need some time to think about it. And I'll share this deck with you so you have some time to really reflect on these as well. But let's hear from Kirti.
Yeah, so I think this has been very transformative for me. It is not more about the result, it is more about the process. So Karm, as specifically the journey that I had with Karm Fellowship, it had taught me a lot to focus more on process. And where once you reflect, you try to understand, okay, if this is behavior coming, this is coming from where? Because a single behavior could be reflecting back to many directions, and understanding your objective as well, because a lot of us are from different backgrounds, be it geographically, economically, socially, because we ourselves are so different from one another that one approach cannot work out for everybody else as well. So understanding what is better for you, and then you aligning your approach in a way which suits your objectives really well, is something requires deep reflection as well. So personally, it has been kind of transformative for me, and it has continuously also, I have been learning a lot about all such instances, and I also think to apply all these in my situations which I encounter in my life.
Beautiful. So you're already doing the think, feel,
Yeah.
act as you're sharing. And I feel like we do that naturally, but sometimes good to name it and be able to make these connections. Since this is a last reflection prompt, Suman, do you want to share as well? And then we will pause and take some questions and then come back for closing.
So basically, since I have been with Karm for a year now, and something like reflecting is very important in Karm, and one is very reflection is a basic thing that we do, whether it is in workshops or it's at the regular basis. So personally, what I never used to reflect on things, I used to just do things and continuously just working on things and never used to think back what I am doing and what I have done over the time. Over the period of this 1 year, I have learned that reflection means a lot to a person, not only for self growth, even
Absolutely.
also to for the self awareness and to know what we are doing and what is going around us. Over time, even we did our summer internship, and in internship I used to do a daily reflection, and that helped me to learn that reflection is very important, because I used to forget a lot of things, but when I used to go back to those reflection, I can see what I need to improve, what I did well, and what I did. The main thing that what we do and why we did it and what we have achieved, we used to forget that and just keep working on. So these reflections helps us not only think differently about the things that happening around us, but it also helps us to think differently about us, differently about the self, that what we are doing, and that helps a lot in personal growth, I think.
Beautiful. That is so true. And anything that I've learned about reflection is that it is so important to go back and connect dots, as someone was saying in the chat. And the only way to do that, or the only way, like, experience is nothing if there's no debrief or reflection that happens, right? And if you don't have other people to debrief it with, there are questions that exist, right, that we can think about and write down and mull over time. So I completely agree with you that reflection actually forms like a big part of meaning making of any experience, any education that we have experienced. Okay, with that, I'm going to stop sharing. And I hope that was helpful to think about in terms of what kind of education and what kind of freedom does it unleash. I'm going to stop for questions and then we'll come back for closing. So happy to, for Kirti or Jyoti, whoever is helping us moderate chat.
Yes, Subhoshri, you have a
So,
question?
Joshi,
Can
yeah.
you go?
Hi, ma'am. It was really exciting listening to you. I had something in my mind, and I think this session was planned. Like the timing was perfect because I was thinking about it yesterday only, and I thought I'd ask. So, we grew up in schools which sort of awarded us for memorizing answers rather than asking good questions. I feel like curiosity was always named as distraction, and conformity was praised, if that makes sense. of course, Teach for India classes were different. KARM is totally different. But I feel like majority of the schools are this way, unfortunately. So what as students we can do, or like as a person, what can we do to just overcome the conformity bias, or what you do to overcome the conformity bias and actually think beyond it, or like I hope I'm making some sense.
Yes, you're
Because
making
it's
a lot
just
of sense. And yeah, don't doubt that. Don't give these caveats because you're always making sense. When you have a question, you're asking that, right? You're actually doing exactly what you thought you couldn't do as a student in a classroom. But I think something and this is a very real thing, right? This is not just true about like classrooms and schools. This is also true about workplaces and other spaces, right? How often are we encouraged to question, to challenge? And gender plays another role. I know that is also something that comes alive. I think the 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 key to that is educating again, like I'll go back to the head heart hand, educating ourselves on what is it that we care about or what is it that we are curious about, being able to communicate it really well, right? Like questioning doesn't mean that we can just question with any tone or any words. So that's where the heart comes in, right? How are we communicating what we are thinking about? And then finally actually doing it takes a lot of courage, like you said, right? And when it is not rewarded, it is even more difficult to do it. But I think as we are growing up and as all of you are becoming like young adults, I would think about being able to really frame it in a manner that speaks the truth that you are thinking about, but also like I think also keeps in account how the other person is going to receive that question. So being able to balance that will be important, and doing that on ourselves, like Kirti said about Kirti or someone else, I'm forgetting about reflection, right? Like how often if something is given to us or something is told to us, we just go ahead and like do it as normal. And how often do we pause to reflect and think about the why behind it, and what are the questions we are developing about that task or about that perspective that we have heard. And then I would say, like, think about who's that safe space that you can experiment this questioning with. So maybe you can't do that yet with the world, but who is that other person that you can still talk to and have an opinion about? And then that hopefully sets stage for you to be able to do it with the people that you find it difficult to do it with. I don't know if that answers your question, but something that has helped me.
Ma'am, I guess there are two questions on the chat.
Yes, I will respond to that. Was there any time when you faced a setback or failure, and how did you deal with it? Any advice on how, in such situations, we students should act? I think like a collective setback that we had was COVID. And again, there were personal challenges, professional challenges, all of that. I remember I became the city director in March 2020. And as we all know, that was the onset of COVID. And suddenly we were left with what do we do about education was far fetched. What do we do about basic needs that our kids and our communities and our parents have, right? How are we even going to think about education before thinking about physiological safety, about food, ration, just medicines and healthcare? And the world was shut, right? And so now I think it's so easy for us to do this on Zoom. And of course, there's opportunity in any crisis. But at that time, like our kids didn't have devices, our kids didn't have access to devices or access to internet recharges and other things. So I feel like that was a huge setback that we had faced as a world. I would think it wasn't like me alone or any organization alone, but I think we figured out what is the first thing that we can do. Sometimes I think in life I always like backwards plan and focus on long term planning, but when we are faced with such setbacks or failures, I think the orientation was about, okay, what's the first thing that we can do to ensure that children are safe, and like how can we make sure that that happens. And then we started thinking about what else needs to be present so that they have access and their learning doesn't stop, and how do we make sure that we are getting to all of our kids and all of that. But I think my advice uh, is that really think about what's in your locus of control, even if everything seems out of control. And then what is that one thing that you can do to make that situation a little bit better, 1% better, maybe not like 100% better. Yeah. So that, I don't know, Saira, if that answered your question. If you have follow-up questions, please ask. Another question is from YouTube, which is that I'm just going to read that out so people on YouTube also know what we're reading. You've worked deeply in education systems. How do you see pedagogy and teaching methodologies evolving, not just to improve learning outcomes, but to make teaching a more empowering, respected profession in India? I think this is such an important question. I think something that I have seen through my work in education is that it has changed over time. And the time where I was working in Teach for India, we saw so many new curriculums being introduced. There are so many Teach for India alum organizations that are working on really effective teacher training, teacher well-being modules. And so I've seen like a lot of work happen, even though there's a lot of work that needs to happen at scale to really change the education system and evolve it and make sure it is student centric. I do see that there are many things that were in place in terms of the curriculums being launched or the type of training that we were focusing on, not focusing on rote learning, but on inquiry based learning, flipped classrooms, making sure that the accountability and the authority need is on student outcomes and student learning versus on administrative tasks. So I did see that shift over time. Did it shift at scale? Maybe not. But did we have enough proof points that we could create? Yes. And an example that comes to my mind is of the student-centric approach is the Student Advisory Board program that we did with the Delhi government, where we worked on creating student advisory boards across Delhi schools. We started with 20. We were hoping to get to 1,000, where students could take decisions for themselves that matter to them on their own versus somebody else deciding for them what is good in terms of an assembly or like a project that they want to lead. So that was something that I did see change, which wasn't true before, where we partnered with the government to be able to create that orientation of students as leaders today.
Hi, ma'am. Saira has also put up something. Okay.
Yes, happy to answer some of these. I think Saira's question is about being working in education domain, being in TFI, and further working at Teach for All. I would love to know your views that do you agree that education is more like a business than a center of learning? Isn't it that we are burdening children with so much like mastering technical skills, participating in different curriculums, and also we want them to score 100%? I do see positive aspects, but at the same time, it feels like we're not letting the children enjoy their childhood. I think this is such a powerful question again, Saira, and we often reflect on that, right? Like student leadership shouldn't mean students are not having their childhood. And I think that is something which is a constant conversation that happens. I don't think that it is like a business because of my experience with Teach for India and Teach for All. And now that I've seen the scale of it across different countries as well, I feel like based on my experience, I think we focus a lot, at least the Teach for programs focus a lot on making sure that we are keeping children at the center, making sure we're developing students, facilitating that development holistically, and making sure that students are actually with us and we are not doing it for them. So I have seen that differently. But I do agree that we need to there's a careful balance of doing everything or doing something strategically. Something that I do feel matters in all of this is the role of a teacher, right? And what is the relationship that that teacher has with their students? And that's why it's not just about creating avenues and opportunities. It's really about educating the head, heart, and hand. And if we are truly connected as a teacher with our students, I feel like we will know whether it is becoming too much or too less. And I'm not talking about the 10 students that will do everything, but it's also the opposite, right? Where there are some kids who don't get to experience anything. And I'm a big advocate of the last child in the classroom. So I would really think about how can all of my 40 girls uh, play a part in the musicals. If someone like a Nirmal wanted to be a narrator, she would do that. But if someone like a Sneha, like I said, like wanted to sing, she was singing I Have a Dream in front of like 700 people. So I think it's really about knowing what each child is good at and wants to do, and then being able to work with them on that. Does that answer your question, Saira?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Priyanka has asked another question. What do you think about access to education for differently abled people and the LGBTQI community? You talked about how education should impact your thinking, feelings, and actions, but how does education impact these communities given the several constraints placed on? I think this is again, a really good question. I love your critical thinking, KARM fellows, and how you're coming up with all these really insightful questions. And I'd love to know, Priyanka, what are ways in which we could do that as well. But in Teach for All, I think we really focus on standing with the marginalized, right? And like you said, there are already constraints placed with the marginalized. So how do you actually reduce barriers and help them move from point A to B? At minimum, not create more barriers, but that is just like a baseline, right? Actually, what are the barriers we can lower? How can we elevate the voices of the marginalized? How can we make sure that we are just a platform that they can speak on and not speak for them? I think that is really important. Um, and and I think being able to like really look at the last child, whether that last child is academically behind or systems are creating or because of their identity, I think that is something really important. That how do you really focus on each and every as you focus on all is going to be important in this. But again, I keep going back to the relationships with the teacher, right? Like it doesn't matter what my identity is, it doesn't matter what my abilities are. If I have a relationship with myself, my teacher, my peers, where I'm able to have not just a safe space, but also a brave space where I can actually ask for things I need, but also others are really understanding what I need and are able to support me. I think that is something that will create the change that we are hoping for. We have another question. In my course, we study different theories. They mention about the law of readiness. Teach only when the child is ready to learn is important so that real learning takes place. But at the same time, we want the syllabus to be covered on or before time. What are your thoughts on this? This is a beautiful question and it links to my fellowship very aptly. But so I started my fellowship as in a first year intervention classroom. What that means is that my kids, like I was their first Teach for India fellow. And they were 6-year-olds, right? So they were in grade 2. So when I started with them, like I said in my story in the beginning, they didn't understand any word of English that I was speaking. And they didn't even like they couldn't even identify letters. Now they will not agree, by the way, if you talk to them. I'm meeting them soon this weekend, so I know that they're going to tell me this, but they could not identify letters, right? And I was expected as a teacher in a government school to actually teach them grade level textbooks, which was obviously very far from them being able to access it. So what I tried to do was actually I left the textbooks, because again, teaching textbooks when they can't like identify letters is not something that would anyway lead to any results, right? And this is where I always say this, like teaching should be equal to learning. Teaching cannot, like we have to be really careful and mindful of that. We can't just continue teaching without actually it leading to learning. So what I did was actually use the first 7 to 8 months of the second grade classroom that I had with my girls to really focus on the basics, to focus on basic numeracy, literacy, all of the things first, so that they could actually like understand words, read words. We started with CVC words, consonant, vowel, consonant words. I'm sure like many fellows here would understand what I'm saying, but we actually started with phonics. We started with basic numeracy, and focused on that. And I know there was a lot of pressure that the syllabus is there, but we spent the 8 months to build the foundation. And then actually we used the entire month of April, which is almost like a month before summer vacation, right? So people were okay with us doing like different things, but we spent that month completing our textbooks, even though they had moved to grade 3. And we spent April to when they could actually access their books, because of all the foundational learning that we did in the first 8 months. That is only when we moved to the syllabus and to the books, because I feel like if we just teach the books because they have to be done, I don't think it serves the purpose. So yeah, I would always say like get the kids ready to be able to access the syllabus before teaching the syllabus.
Do we have any questions?
Any other questions?
Ma'am again got one
Yes.
on the
Yes.
chat.
Yes, I'm just reading that, and I'll read that for the YouTube live as well. So at KARM, as well as our initiative of Karmavas, we deeply focus on social emotional learning, focusing on the same I wanted to ask, how do students cope with feelings of failure or rejection in an environment that highly values academic achievement? This is so uh, relevant. Again, I think something what Subhashi also said, that it's a norm, right? That like academics above everything else. But I think, um, like I said, I think when we only focus on academics, we only let 10% of the classroom survive or thrive, right? But when we focus on holistic, we let each and every child thrive. And the way we can do that is really understanding, and this takes a lot of effort and time, right? For first, you need to create a safe space and build the relationships with your kids, right? The first day I went to my classroom, that image that I showed you, it was not the relationship that we had, right? They just thought I'm some like stranger who's come to the class and asking them to do something, while they didn't even understand the language. But I think slowly, by visiting their homes, spending time with them, extra classes, really like talking to them about themselves, building relationships with their parents, all of that became really important to build that foundation of trust. And then actually focusing on noticing what each child is great at is equally important, right? And I know in the first week, you would always see like 10 kids who are great academically because they're also confident, all of that, to just be the center of sort of attention for any teacher, right? But if are you taking the time to really understand different children and what their abilities are. I believe that everyone has strengths. We just need to look for them, right? So how do we focus on that? And then through the classroom, what are the rewards for? Are they only for academic achievement? That's not actually walking the talk then, right? Like we can say academic achievement is not the only thing, but if we only promote and celebrate that, then that's not okay. Are we giving opportunities where every child can shine? And if we're not doing that, then we're only focusing on academics again. So I think it's the little things, it's the little actions, but it's a lot of trust and relationships and really knowing about each child, then creating that space where they can thrive, and then being able to celebrate every ability versus just academic achievement. Having said that, academic achievement is also really important. So I'm not saying that that's not important. And while work will be done to create that, I think that can't be the only thing that we focus on. We have to focus on like how are people behaving with each other, how are they contributing to every single person in the classroom, every single problem of the classroom. Okay, I have lost track of chat, but let me see more questions.
I guess Subhoshri has something to say.
I
She
had a
raised her
Go
follow-up
hand.
for it.
question.
Go for it,
I
Shubhashri.
had a follow-up question. Ma'am, you said that you try to identify every student's abilities, right? But some students are just into the like they don't open up easily and they are left behind because like they don't we can't identify. So what were the few things that you did to actually pick up what is the what is the ability that the kid had?
Sure. I mean, so one is definitely spending time with them as a person, not as a teacher, right? Am I actually spending time playing with them in the break or after school or sometime where it's like an informal conversation? It's not the pressure of us having to do a task or having to be a like work at something, right? Literally like just having conversations with them. But I think an example that comes to my mind is of one of my students. She was really good at math and she loved it, but she would never finish her homework and she would never tell me why that happened. Right. And I would be like, I don't know why this is happening. She's so like interested in the class, all of that, but then she would never come. But when I actually spent time with her, I went to her house, I realized that there are so many people who live in the house and there is not enough space for her to do anything and focus on anything separately. That I actually like I remember we created like this little cardboard space where and spoke to her mother to make sure that she sits for half an hour to finish it, and this the next day after that she finished everything, right? So I think it is only about the intention to act that will actually create change. So of course I could have sat there being like, oh, this person is lazy, they don't do the homework, oh, the parents don't care, oh, this happened, that happened. But I think it is about like really, if I really want to know why something is not happening, then I will find the reason or the solution to it. Another example that comes to my mind is one of my students. I'm not naming them because they are now grown up adults, but they're one of my students. I used to do home visits for my kids, right? And I used to make sure I go to their homes and talk to their parents and all of that. And this one child, for the first 2 months, just kept running away whenever it was time for her home visit because she just did not want me to, like, to meet her parents or do anything. And I would be like, okay, today is her day. Like, where is she? And I would see she's just running away. And like in the class, she would be super quiet or sometimes like super like naughty, but she would not want to spend like a single minute alone with me. And I think what I realized like after that was she is just very fearful of what I'm going to say to her parents because of her past experiences, and she doesn't want that interaction and the reaction of her parents, right? So she was a student who would not perform that well academically. So she was always scared that that's the focus from the past experience. So this teacher who has come in my classroom is just going to complain about me to my parents. And so I won't give her the opportunity to meet them. And finally, when I realized, I remember I was in the community and I was with another child, and I was like, okay, where is this person's house? And then we went there, and like I just praised her, right? I just said like great things about her, and that changed everything, because she was like, suddenly, oh, she's not here to complain, or she's not here to be angry at me. She's here to actually say, and no one had said good things about her to her parents. And I think that shifted everything. But keeping at it and really knowing why something is not happening is important. Okay, another question. Bhumika says she teaches tuition. It always fascinates me how curious their minds are, but then again, the parents are always on to how fast their syllabus can be completed. Even if I try to persuade their parents, they just make their kids quit tuition. How do I convince them that their basics need to be first cleared? I think this is tricky because it's not either or, right? Like parents are also like, it's valid, right? They're sending the kids to tuition so that they can excel in their school academically. And I know it's difficult, but I would think about like really showcasing like proof points to the parents, maybe like calling them for a meeting and being able to really show examples of like journeys of different kids who have excelled academically, but before that they needed to do the foundations well. And I think we have so many examples through like KARM, through Teach for India, that we could show that. But I honestly feel like it is about really like building the why and the rationale for the parents. I think parents also do it because they want to see their child succeed at school, right? So I would do this when I was a fellow, where I would actually talk to the tuition teacher of some of my kids and work with the tuition teacher to be like, this is what I'm focusing on. Can you also focus on this? Because we don't want rushed syllabus to be covered when kids are really not learning anything. So I would say like collaborate with their teachers, collaborate with their parents to really like get them to see and really celebrate small wins, right? Like if kids are getting the basics, celebrate that. Like call the parent up, celebrate it with them so that they see that, okay, they may not be at D right now, but they've moved from A to B.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing. I guess we are all done with our questions. We also tried to incorporate the questions from YouTube as well. So yeah, I think we are all set to wrap up this session. Before that, we would like to thank you. Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your TFI journey, and especially showing those beautiful pictures with us, the pictures of children and how they are now in college. That really made our day, to be honest. And from the team of KARM, right now Radhika ma'am is traveling also, so she has also shared her wishes with us. So from the team, we would like to, and from KARM fellows as well, we would like to thank you for sharing everything, especially the TFI moments and how beautiful those pictures were, and also for those reflective questions, as in that also helped us to think how reflection can be very important, because we we are getting things, but sometimes we forget to reflect and think how important those things are, and how those things helps us to find our strength and challenges, and also to made us believe that challenges come with solutions as well. And I guess this session is more meaningful and informative for our future educators, because there are so many educators in our meeting that you can see from the questions only. They are also looking for TFI and for being great educators. So I guess it's a great tip for them, as how can they be a great educator, how can they make child centered classrooms. Yeah, how can they make those brave spaces. I think this is a very beautiful word and very empowering. So thank you so much for doing this, and thank you for bearing with us as well for those 10 minutes. It's all, technical thingies and sometimes just
Sure.
out of our hands.
No problem at
But
all. It was
thanks a lot.
lovely. And I have added the deck on the chat. So if you need these questions for later, There is a closing reflection question if you'd like to share before you go. And I am very grateful that I got this space with KARM girls. You're so creative, you think so critically, and you have the courage to ask really good questions. So thank you for having me in the space.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I guess now we can wrap up the session. Yeah. So thank you so much, ma'am. And yeah, there's a heart for this session for sure. Uh, yeah, and now I guess we can log out. Yeah. Thank you guys for joining. Now you can log out.